And welcome to our October 19th council meeting. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Remove your hats if you would. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Matt, start us with a roll call.
Councilor Savage.
Here.
Robinson.
Here.
Demas.
Here.
Zadi.
Here.
Halter.
Here.
Batolo.
Here.
West.
Here.
Hickerson.
Here.
Maricomo.
Here, and Councilman, the first order of business, I'd entertain a motion to approve the revised agenda before you here tonight.
So moved, Your Honor.
Would we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second has been called. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Council, this is going to bring us to our appointments section of our agenda. Mr. President, members of the Council, I submit the name of Devin.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Approve the minutes. Skip the minutes.
Oh, keep me straight, boys and girls. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the City Council meeting of October 5th, 2021.
Your Honor, so moved.
We do have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Councilman West. Next item is the appointments. Mr. President, members of the council, I submit the name of Devin Brubaker to serve second term on the Joint Travel and Tourism Board.
Council, you have before you the name Devin Brubaker to serve second term on the Sweetwater Joint Travel and Tourism Board. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. President.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Robinson.
Yes.
Demas.
Yes.
Zadi.
Yes?
Halter.
Yes.
Batolo.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Hickerson.
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Mayor, you have your appointment.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. It's going to bring us on to our presentations and proclamations section of our agenda. And item number one, we're honored to have the Wyoming Association of Municipalities, Mr. Frazier. We're honored to have Mayor Murdoch and Mayor Hall here with us today. I'm going to have you come up and give us a dog and pony show and tell us what you're all about and what we're missing out on. And while you guys are here, just before you start, feel free to spend a couple days, spend some money, increase our sales tax revenues, and take advantage of all the opportunities we have here in Rock Springs.
We do. Roger that.
Thanks, Mayor.
Could we also recommend a food truck?
Yeah.
Right?
Just one?
All of them. Thank you, Your Honor. We've already begun to put a dent in the in some of your local eateries here, so we'll do our part before we leave town for sure. Thank you. As the mayor indicated, my name's David Frazier. I'm the executive director of the Wyoming Association of Municipalities. And as the mayor mentioned with me, I have a couple of other mayors. Mayor Murdoch, who is the mayor of City of Pinedale, not too far from you here. He is on our Legislative Leadership Committee, which is the group that really kind of fine-tunes our legislative agenda, and as we move through, kind of makes adjustments and tweaks as needed. So he's a very important member of the association, and we appreciate the work he does there. Also, Mayor Hall is Mayor Hall of Cody. Behind me in the brown jacket is the president of the association, and he's the mayor of Cody. Also, our vice president, who sends his best and wishes he could have been here tonight, but he has a council meeting. Our vice president is Carter Napier, city manager of City of Casper. And again, he would like to have been here, but I guess his council expects him at his own meeting. So before I say anything else, just to give you a real quick idea of why it is that I drew the straw to stand in front of you first here tonight. Little peek behind the curtain. We were kind of sitting here powwowing about, who should go up, and it was immediately brought up, well, of course, whoever is the best speaker. And so it was quickly decided who that was, but they declined. So we regrouped and, well, let's, who then, if we can't have the best speaker, well, let's get the best looking person to stand up
There
and
you go.
present. So, whether it's a good presentation or not, at least people will enjoy looking at them while they're giving the presentation. And again, that was decided pretty quickly who that was, but it was turned down. So we regrouped one more time and said, well, if we can't get the best speaker, we can't get the best looking, let's get the most popular guy to go up there. And that way, at least if he doesn't do a great job, at least people will be nice to him because of his popularity. And so it was, again, determined really quickly who that was, and I couldn't say no a third time, so. So here I am. Thank you, Mayor. I won't bury the lead. We represent 98 of the 99 cities in Wyoming, and we would like to make that unanimous, and so we're here tonight to extend you the invitation to return. I'm not sure any of us that are here tonight were around when you left, so we only have hearsay about why you're not among us, but we certainly tonight, I want to kind of tell, just for anybody on the council who's not familiar with us, I'm going to give a very brief, maybe 5-minute overview of what WHAM is, and then would stand for any questions that you have, be they courteous or difficult. If if there's something you want to know about what we're doing or what we are, who we are, or about something we're not doing or something we're doing you wish we weren't, I'm happy to address any of that. And so feel free to. I hope you'll feel free to get right down to the brass tacks if we need to. With that, WHAM is all of the 49 of the 50 states have a municipal association. The only state that doesn't is Hawaii. Interestingly, because all of their cities are counties. So the downside of that is that the National League of Cities never holds their meeting in Hawaii. But anyway, so 49 states exist. There is a National League of Cities, which was created by the state leagues. As the state leagues all formed up, they decided that they needed to have a national presence, and so much like our country, where the states formed the federal government, the state leagues got together and formed a national league, not the other way around. So that's just a little interesting trivia for you there. So as a state league, we exist. We're not a large state league in terms of people, in terms of employees. We are a large league in terms of our membership, and I, in fact, tell our membership often, I'm not WHAM. WHAM's not a building in Cheyenne. You're WHAM, and we're those few of us that are on staff are hired to help you accomplish what your collective goals are. To that end, we really only have 3.5 employees. We have myself, I'm the executive director. We also have a HR, an administrative director, who handles HR and finance and kind of all the office administrative functions. We have a member services manager who is responsible for helping to get information, communicating with the members, does a lot of, puts the training together. Right now he's doing a weekly ARPA Zoom meeting where he's bringing in folks from, nationally and from the state and even from some of the counties, trying to get, to the degree there is such a thing as an expert on ARPA. He's trying, at this point, he's trying to kind of bring all of that to bear. So that's an example of what he does, but he also does our annual conferences and our legislative conferences and our finance director's workshop and all of our communication. And then we have a legislative director, which on the books is a full-time position. Right now we have that filled as a part-time basis for a couple of reasons. One reason is to save a nickel, and which isn't always a bad thing if you can do it, without giving up value. Because I have a background in lobbying, and I do a lot of our lobbying. We have a part-time lobbyist. His name, I haven't named names, by the way, so far. The administration is Erla Checki, who some of you may know. Member Services Director is Justin Schilling. Our lobbyist, which is a part-time position, and the three of us all live in Cheyenne, by the way. The lobbyist is the only one of us that doesn't live in Cheyenne. His name is Bob McLaurin, and some of you may know him. He was the town manager in Jackson I'm not sure how long altogether, but he retired a few years ago. He's works for us now as a lobbyist. Interestingly, and I didn't tell you anything about my background, I grew up in Sundance, and then most of my friends left the state after school, and I spent my career around the country. I was city manager in 4 cities in 4 different time zones, and then spent 10 years as the executive director of the Nevada League of Cities, which was the same position but in Nevada, and then had an opportunity to come home, and by this point in my life I was smart enough to know. I wish I had been smarter earlier, but I finally was smart enough to know where I wanted to be, and had the opportunity to come and be here. So here I am. So that's our staff, and that's kind of the hats that they wear. One of our, kind of the primary things we do, we're kind of your folks in Cheyenne for anything. So we sit in on a lot of the state boards, and we fill various needs there. Our primary purposes are, our singular purpose is to help the cities and towns in Wyoming to speak with one voice, and to bring to bear your collective strength, so that we can get what municipalities need in order to continue to thrive. With that, kind of the couple of major focuses we have are on training, as I just mentioned, and on legislation. That a little bit involves legislation at the federal level. We get a good assist from the National League there, but we focus most of our energy at the State House here in Wyoming. I've been the executive director for 2.5 years. We've had one of my primary focuses since I've been here is and I'm not saying this was difficult, because mostly it was happening, but to get everybody writing for the brand, as it were. In fact, at the first, and this wasn't new to me, because again, I mentioned I'd done the job 10 years before in another state. The first interim legislative committee I testified in front of was on our Municipal Option Tax bill, and when I got done testifying, one of our cities came up and testified against it. And you can see where that's going to get you nowhere in a hurry on that. That city did have some, I did, spoiler alert, I did end up asking the committee for more time to work on the bill, and we eventually got it passed. But that city did have some concerns about it, and unfortunately, WAM hadn't addressed it. And so we were able to address those concerns. We were able to get them on board, and we were able then to take a unified voice, and lo and behold, we got the Municipal Option Tax, which I know I don't need to explain to you guys, because I think you've had some discussion about it here in the last year or so. But a great tool that our cities can use to generate sales tax. Now, an interesting part of that, and of getting everybody to ride for the brand, is that there's just a lot of disparity in our cities. We have cities as large as Casper and Cheyenne, which are virtually tied, but as small as our smallest city is Lost Springs, with a population of 4. And so, the needs vary. Now, most of what we do, most everything that we work on affects everybody, but there are some issues that affect cities differently. Municipal Option Tax was an example. And it was and a spoiler alert, it was a small town that had a beef with what we were pursuing initially on that, because it would kind of disproportionately favor the larger towns that had sales tax bases. If you don't have any sales tax base in your town, then municipal option tax, isn't going to generate you anything. So we put some things in there that would safeguard small towns. But interestingly then, by the time we actually got to where the rubber was meeting the road on that, we had the mayor of Shoshone who serves on our board, drove down to Cheyenne for the hearing, the legislature, got up and testified. This isn't going to help Shoshone, he said, but because it's going to help Riverton and Lander, it's going to help us, because that's where we shop, that's where we recreate, you know. So if the other municipalities in our county are strong, that is going to help Shoshone. And so we not only had, so we kind of ended up all the way, you know, from a place where we had, you know, one of our small towns to actually testifying against it, to where we had small towns testifying for it and why it would be helpful. And that's, and you know, that works both ways. Another thing that we work on is direct distribution. You know, we've had, that's been under assault, I'm sure since before I got here, but we've been going to bat and keeping direct distribution at the level that it's been at. We'd like to see that go up, but of course, we, as you know, we keep having it being threatened with it going down, and we've been able to maintain it at that level. Again, something that benefits the smaller towns more than the larger towns, the direct distribution. Some of our smaller towns, you know, that's as much as 40% of their budget comes from direct distribution. So while it's important to everybody, again, more important to some than to others. So that's kind of one of the things that, and one of the things that I learned when I was in Nevada, where we had cities as small as a couple of hundred up to Las Vegas and Reno, and so you know, those were some lessons I learned there. Is how can you know what I mean? How can we all get behind each other? How can we be on our game at the staff level and on our game at the board level to make sure that what we're doing is help, you know what I mean, that we're not doing anything to harm anybody. And even though some of the issues we may take on may benefit one group of cities or another, more, there'll be other issues that benefit that other group of cities. And so if we all get behind each other, then Mayor Charlie Powell of Casper said it best in one of our regional meetings when I first got here. He said, if you guys will get behind us on this municipal option tax, we'll get behind you on direct distribution. And you know, that's pretty good when one of the biggest cities says, we'll get behind the small cities and help you if you help us. And that's the way it played. But that's requires constant attention. Again, requires me to really be on my game. And one of the things that I've said to the board is that we're going to help each of our members so long as it's not hurting any of our members. So even if it's an issue that only affects one member, if we can be helpful, you know, as long as our help isn't causing any harm to anybody else, if we can be helpful just to one of our members, we'll do that. And an example of that were some water issues that the city of Laramie had with the University of Wyoming, which, as you can imagine, is an interesting foe to go up against in a hearing. But it's like going, you know, it's like, well, I'll stay away from an example. But at any rate, you know, that was an issue that was strictly a Laramie issue. But it was something that we could help with, and us helping them would do harm to nobody else, you know, none of our other members. So we got in and we helped them with that issue. And the board's been very supportive of that approach, you know, that it's all for one and one for all. And sometimes that literally means all for one. And sometimes that means you're the one and you're going to get behind it for everybody else. And again, with the kind of baseline rule being, will do no harm, you know, to any of our members. So I mentioned the municipal option tax, and I just mentioned a couple of things. We also recently got a surface water utility statute passed, which will help all of our members, some more than others. I know City of Cheyenne is beginning to take advantage of that already. We have a couple of cities. I think Cody is, in fact, I think, taking a really good hard look at that. I don't know how far down the road they are on that yet, but Cody's looking at that as well as several of our members. We got a few things cooking right now. We've got what it's going to be called is still kind of being worked out, but we basically have a taxing district bill that we're helping work through the legislature that would allow for a portion of a county that's bigger than just the city. You know what I mean? We kind of now have legislation where you can do a county sales tax, and we now have legislation where we can do a city sales tax. This would be kind of a kind of a hybrid of that, where it might be a half a county and 2 cities or something. And because we had members around the state that said, what would really help us, you know what I mean?
Right.
Well, this is great and that's great, but what would really help us is this. So now we're working on that, and we do have, that's been going through the interim presently. We do have some I don't have my crystal ball, so I can't guarantee how that's gonna turn out, but I can tell you we have some good traction on that right now. And we have the right champions in the legislature that are on board with that, so I feel good about that. I don't want to talk too much about any of that, and so I really want to wrap up right now, Mayor. I'm sure maybe it'd be better if I wrapped up 2 or 3 minutes ago, but let me go ahead and wrap up and just say, I'm kind of tired of telling the legislature I represent 98 of the cities in Wyoming, and I'd like to be able to say, and not just me, and I'm being kind of tongue-in-cheek there. I bring a message from the board, and this came right from the board, that they really would, where we've only got the one city that's not a member, we'd really like to be unanimous. And so we're here tonight to invite you back. We recognize that that's your decision. Again, I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions that might help you, help us understand you better, and maybe help you understand us better. Mayor, if there's time for that, I'd be happy to do that. And but again, we just would like to have you back. We'd like to invite you back. Thank you for your time.
Dave, I appreciate that. And just to give you a little bit of history back in the day, and especially some of us that have been here for quite a long time, it was my decision at that time to move away from WHAM. Back in the George Parks days, when we were aggressively lobbying for dollars and needs for our communities, and don't get me wrong, I think WHAM does a fantastic job for 98 communities. They just, at that time, they weren't. We were lobbying against each other, and you kind of touched on that a little bit. It's hard to satisfy the needs of 99 communities, and at that time, the city council was actually lobbying on their own behalf and creating relationships with legislators and the governor's office and trying to get some things done at that point. And we just felt at that time for the dues that we paid and the amount of time that we spent in Cheyenne, it was in our best interest to go down there and spend some time one-on-one with legislators, the governor's office, and do the best we possibly could to get dollars back to our community. A couple of questions, and I know some others have some as well, but what do you feel your relationship with Waco is? It seems like most of the time we're lobbying against each other as well. I don't know if you guys get this, and I'm sure the mayors probably do, but do you get this feeling when you get down to Cheyenne that the legislators that left our community no longer live in our community, and they don't really, they all of a sudden become Cheyenne members, and it's their money and not our money, and quit asking us for money, and we're going through one right now where we've given you those powers, go back home and initiate the powers that we gave you before you come back here and ask for money, which was a general purpose tax, and we came back and we brought that forward, and lo and behold, right away we get legislators show up and tell us, what the hell are you doing? Are you really going to do this? And so what's your take on that?
I think thank you, Your Honor. I think you just asked me 2 questions. Number one, our relationship with the counties, and then you touched on, and I'm not sure if you meant for me to respond to legislators forgetting where they're from occasionally. I'd be happy to touch on both of those if you'd like.
Please do.
So interesting, and I don't want to turn this into about me, right? Because I just got done telling you I'm not WHAM, but I do bring my experiences with me, and when I got to the Nevada League of Cities, I'd been a city manager, and so I kind of understand how the nuts and bolts worked at City Hall, but I hadn't been an association director, and there's some unique differences there. Some things are the same, working for a board and et cetera, but anyway. At that time, the director of the Association of Counties had been there for 25 years, and he took me under his wing and taught me how to be, as much as anybody, he mentored me into the position. and he ended up retiring while I was there, and so I got to work with his successor as well. But needless to say, that really spawned a great cooperative relationship between the Association of Counties and the League of Cities there. And that's kind of the paradigm that I brought here, bless his heart. That's kind of the paradigm that I brought here. And one of the things I learned before I got here was that legislators will play the cities and counties off each other. And if they divide us, they will conquer us. And sometimes, sometimes it's just the way it is, but sometimes they'll use it, if they can get us fighting each other, then they don't have to deal with the issue. And so we were fortunate that Jeremiah Riemann, and who many of you probably know, and I came into the jobs at the same time. He's the executive director of the County Commissioners Association. I sat down with Jeremiah immediately and said, we need to be teammates. There's going to be some things that we can't agree on, but even in those cases, we need to not surprise each other, and we need to, see if we can, work what we need to without damaging each other, and because we're going to get way more done if we're together. And he was in agreement. I mean, it didn't take any convincing, and he and I have had a great working relationship. We talk before the hearings. We compare notes beforehand. One of the reasons we got the municipal option tax, because the biggest thing that was killing that, and in fact, I mentioned the first hearing I went to where a city got up and testified against us, that was gonna die in that committee meeting. It had been something at that meeting, one of the legislators said, I feel like Chevy Chase going around the roundabout in the vacation movie and can't get out. And one of the biggest things was that the counties were opposed to it because of the threat that they thought it might be to the fifth and sixth pennies. And in fact, as I met with them and so again at that hearing, I literally said, look, I don't know what this bill is going to look like, but this isn't it in front of you. Can you give me a little time to work on this? And they did. They granted us time. I got with the counties and we figured out what their issues were, and they were valid concerns. There were valid concerns that, using Laramie County, for example, if Cheyenne passes a municipal option tax and then the county wants to do a specific purpose tax, why would anybody in Cheyenne vote for that? And if nobody in Cheyenne votes for it, it's not passing. That's a valid concern. And so we negotiated language, and we actually had our two executive boards meet together, and we worked through, we hammered out a compromise and then wrote language to reflect that. And some of the unique things you see in there, which I won't take your time with right here, but some of the unique things you see in there are a result of that. So then at the next interim committee hearing, they said, they got to there on the agenda and called for Wham to come up to the table, and Jeremiah and I went up together and sat down, and the chairman jokingly said, so have you guys worked out an agreement? And we said, yes. and their jaws, it was great to see there. But as soon as we had that agreement with each other, I mean, it's not like there weren't still some other things to work out, but all of a sudden that thing was moving forward. And eventually we got it to the finish line, which we couldn't have done if we'd have stayed in that conflict with the counties. The legislature, rightly so, would have just said, we're not refereeing this fight.
Well, that's good to know, because
Yeah.
sometimes I see us at each other's throats sometimes.
Yeah.
Thoughts about direct distribution going away completely. We hear that.
I don't think it can. We hear that too, and we've been hearing that. We've been successful keeping it at 105 for the last couple rounds. In fact, including a round ago when the governor recommended in his budget a 10% cut, we were able to get that back up
Right.
to the 105. The governor this time actually said he spoke to our conference, our annual conference, and he actually said, and unprompted, he actually said, I'm not touching the 105. So he told us flat out that's going to be in his proposed budget. We know that there'll be some fight with the legislature. I think we got a real assist from whatever your opinions are about all the federal money that's being thrown around right now. I think that we got a bit of an assist there, that the state isn't quite as needy as it was, at least temporarily, so.
Well, that's good. We keep hearing that every once in a while. And then one more, and then I'll let the
You
council
bet.
chime in. What's your thoughts about Fire Plan A? City issue or our Wyoming retirement issue?
There's a, can I answer that out of both sides of my face, Mayor?
Sure.
It is, I believe that it's absolutely the state that created the situation. We were, and I say we even though I wasn't in Wyoming at the time, the cities were prepared to contribute what they were told to contribute, and we were told not to. We would have. I don't think there's any of us that wouldn't, any of the cities that wouldn't have, but at any rate, and so if that hadn't happened, we wouldn't be where we are today. Having said that, we had a speaker at our conference that he wrote a book called, and I'll get you a copy of it. He wrote a book called 13 Ways to Destroy Your Community, and it's tongue in cheek. But one of the ways is to destroy your community is to continually looking for who's to blame. And he said, as a local official, you know what I mean? It may not be your fault that you got whatever the pickle of the day is. It may not be your fault that you're in that. It may be the fault of someone who's long gone. So it's not your fault, but it is still your problem.
Right.
And so that's kind of the way I see this, and here comes the other side of my face. It's not our fault, but it's our problem. Having said that, I don't think it's not fair that we bear the brunt of that. You do know that currently there's a proposal working its way into the legislation where the state would take most of the hit on that. I think it's unfortunate and unfair that the cities will take some hit on that, because I think we deserve none. Having said that, I do think the state is trying to make that as easy a hit as they can on us, including allowing it to be a long-term interest-free
Yeah,
loan.
I don't think that's going to be a choice. I think that's going to be pretty much rammed down our throat that we're going to.
I think you're right, and I
Yep.
think it's unfortunate, it needs to be fixed. But the good news is I think we're gonna get it fixed.
Councilors,
I
Councilman Zardi?
have some questions or comments too, and thank you for coming. It says a lot, means a lot that you're down here and talking to us and reaching out. I can provide some history as well, as I was part of the governing body at the time, and we would be down in Cheyenne, and it seemed like the largest communities didn't have a voice. We're looking at 99 communities. 7 of the largest make up about half the population of the state, and it was 7 communities against 92. And that was really what kind of sparked a lot of the conversation. And we sat with those, I think it was 5 or 6, 7 largest communities, and we made a choice and said, if we don't see change, we're gonna leave. And we didn't see change, and we stuck to what we said we were gonna do. We were paying $30,000, I believe, is that correct, for membership, and didn't feel like we were getting the representation that we needed to have. That being said, I am more than willing to listen and understand more what you're doing and what you're bringing to the table and what you can do for the larger communities. And I do like hearing that all for one, and that's what you were saying, that you will stand up for the communities. If I can get a comfort level where I feel that, yes, we will get representation we need, because there are different needs from the smaller communities and larger communities. We need to understand that. But when the larger communities need help, we need to have help from WHAM and the association as a whole as well. So that's kind of some of the background too, is where this all came about. I think I may have talked to you about this about a year ago. Talking about something different, 307 first, and we had a little conversation. So that's where this, why we are where we are today. And so.
I know you haven't got to a question yet, but may I
Sure.
address that?
Sure.
I don't want to cut you off, Counselor.
No,
if you're not-
I'm good. That's kind of what I wanted to say.
So that's actually one of my Almost feel like I'm in a job interview all of a sudden. But it's actually one of my strengths. And let me quickly tell you, when I took the job at the Nevada League of Cities, I was there for 10 years. When I took the job there, the 5 largest cities in the state, which would have been Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Henderson, Reno, Sparks, the 5 largest cities had formed what they called the I don't want to give you any ideas, but the
No,
5 largest
so
cities
this-
had.
So we did this.
Okay,
It's called the
5
Large Five at that time.
The 5 largest cities formed what they called the Urban Consortium and had hired their own lobbyist. And they hadn't quit the league yet, but I mean, they were obviously, on that, they were obviously 1 foot out the door when I got there. And so over the very same concerns. And so my first job was to hold the league together. And a big part of that was recognizing that that them forming the Urban Consortium wasn't the problem, it was the symptom. And the problem was that they weren't getting their needs met, they weren't getting their money's worth out of the league. So I determined to change that tide, and I won't take time because you got a whole meeting tonight. I could tell you, some of the steps that got us there, but I will tell you that after I'd been there for 2 years, they dissolved the Urban Consortium. They never did leave the league. They dissolved the Urban Consortium. And didn't have their own lobbyists anymore. They were getting what they needed at the league, and that works both ways, by the way. And again, it requires the board to make the right decisions, but it really falls a lot on me in my position to be on my game, because you also can run the danger of the opposite happening, where the small city, you know what I mean, where the big cities are calling all the shots and the small cities, and there's no really great way mathematically to make that happen. That has to be just a constant focus of the executive director to make sure that everybody's getting their needs met, and we can meet, and we don't have to choose between meeting the needs of the large or the needs of the small. We don't have to choose between those two. If it gets out of balance, it's just because we're not on the ball. And sometimes it's hard work to make sure that we're meeting everybody's needs.
Right.
And part of that, frankly, is part of that is us paying attention to that, but part of us is coaching the members and continually getting that consensus that we're all gonna, you know what I mean, that we're all gonna help each other. And maybe, whatever city, maybe this fight that Wham's fighting, we don't really care about, but we're gonna throw our weight in behind it with our legislators or whatever, because around the corner there's gonna be an issue that is gonna be important for us, and we're gonna want the same in return. So it's not an easy thing, but I can tell you from experience it's doable, and I think we've got a pretty good balance of that right now. I mean, our president, we've got kind of our 3 key positions in the organization. One's a mayor of a city of 10,000, the other's a city manager of a city of 60,000. And then our LLC chair is the mayor of a small town, 600 people. So kind of in our key positions, we've kind of got that covered. And interestingly, by the way, which is not entirely an accident, interestingly, they're all from different regions of the state as well. So
Well, and I think that's important because back in the day, that wasn't the case. And a little bit more history to Councilman Zotti's comments. It was bad timing because at the point where we were having some issues with no representation, Wham decided to build a new facility. And on top of paying our dues, they wanted us to double our dues and help pay for the facility that we had never even been to. We were members of the Capitol Club. So it was a double whammy at that time, and I think that's what led a lot of us to say, you know what, we got to do something different. In these trying times with decreased revenue, oil and gas down, coal dollars down, talk about direct distribution going away, we're all going to have to work together to try to do the best we possibly can to make sure that we can keep these communities moving and provide the services that our residents in every community expect and they need. So I definitely appreciate what you're saying. It's nice to hear there's some more willingness to work together because it's going to be an interesting session coming up. Last session was crazy enough as it was, but with decreased revenue and trying to find ways to think outside the box to decrease expenditures and increase revenue somewhere and keep cities and towns moving is going to be a struggle.
Amen.
Yeah.
I didn't hear you ask for an amen, but I'll give you one. One of the things, Mayor, that I forgot to mention, the way our board is constructed, we have 6 regions. This is also important, an important way we try to maintain balance. But again, it comes back to we got to stay focused on maintaining balance. But one of the things we've done structurally, we have 6 regions, and in each of those regions, we have 3 seats on the board. And those seats go to a city, a first-class city is in one seat, the second seat is a town, and then the third seat is at large, could be a city or a town. So that way we try to make sure that we have, and the region can decide, what they want to do with the at large, but at least we make sure we've got a first-class city represented on the board from every region and a town represented from every region.
That's good. Councilors, any other questions? Councilman Batolo.
For the legislature about being able to what is your view as
That's done. It's passed. We got her. And there are some interesting way that the cogs move together on that, because in order to get the deal with the counties, we had to make sure that we didn't get in the county's way. And the same thing with the district, and this may be the one you're referring to, with the with the taxing district we're working on, and we'll probably come up with a better word for that as that moves forward in legislation. But with that, the same thing, we want to make sure we don't step on, not only don't step on each other's toes, but we don't step on our own toes. And so in that legislation, one of the things that we've said is really important to us is that the explicit buy-in and approval by the governing body of any city or county that is in whole or in part included in that would need the affirmative action of the governing body. So again, we don't want to have, we want to make sure we have all these tools in our toolbox, but we want to make sure we structure them in such a way that we don't get in each other's way, or even worse yet, get in our own way on those.
Well said.
Thank you. And I think, and to answer the question that you may have been asking, this other one that we're now working on, better traction at this point than I anticipated. So I don't want to say it's going to pass. I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious. So I don't want to jinx that, but right now it has really good traction. Counselor.
Council, any other questions? Well, Dave, Mayor Murdoch, Mayor Hall, it's an honor to have you folks here in our community. I don't know if you're traveling back. I don't think, Mayor Hall, you're probably not traveling back. But good deal.
We're spending some
Good
hotel
deal.
tax here.
Yeah, maybe after the meeting we can get together if you're still around and chat a little bit more. I don't know how long the meeting's going to go, but you could be in bed by that time. But we're in Rock Springs. We never go to bed. We just roll right into the next day. But we appreciate the time you've taken to come down and give your explanation and bring us up to speed on the changes that WAM has made since many of us remember those days. It was just not well worth our invested dollars spent. We just didn't feel we were being treated fairly.
I understand.
Okay.
I will make a pledge to you, Your Honor, that if when you come back, when you come back, I'm happy to have regular discussions with you about whether you're getting your money's worth and make adjustments as appropriate. It's my job. You know what I mean? It's my job to make sure that all our members are getting their money's worth. So, and I'm not oblivious to the fact that the larger cities are an important part of that formula financially. So, thank you for your time. I know how valuable, I know how much you love having long meetings, so I know how valuable this time was, and I appreciate that. I'd be available offline to take any questions you have. Let me give you my cell phone number. And again, my name's David Fraser. My cell phone is 307-414-0265. I also respond to emails at dfraser@wyomuni.org. But feel free to hit me on my cell phone if you have questions you want to ask directly. I'd be available. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor and Council, for your time.
Thank you, and mayors, thank you for coming down and representing WAM and giving us a little bit of insight on where you're going and where you've been. Okay, councilors, we're going to move on to some proclamations we have. And the first one we have is the General Federation of Women's Club proclamation for Children Week, October 24th through the 31st. And I don't know if Marcia or Leslie, you're both here. You want to come down and say a few words?
Apparently I do.
Come on down and give us a little bit of information about Children's Week.
Well, I'm Marcia Vollner. I'm with the Women's Club of Rock Springs, as is Leslie Jo Gaddy. She's a past state president for General Federations of Women's Clubs Wyoming, and I'm the current vice president. And the International General Federation of Women's Clubs designates the fourth week in October, whatever that falls on, as Advocates for Children's Week. And so we have asked that a proclamation be read just saying that we are advocating for children and that we would like for our community to think about what they can do for our children. Last year when I spoke to you, we were building a buddy bench for mental health for children, and we ended up making 4 of those, 3 in Rock Springs and 1 in Green River. And this year for our project for Advocates for Children's Week, we are buying books and then reading them to the Head Start programs in both Rock Springs and Green River, and then we're donating those books to them. And in the spirit of that, I've given you each a bookmark with our information on it, and I would hope that maybe some of you might like to go into the schools or Head Start or Child Developmental Center somewhere and read to them as well during that week. We would think that was very wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you, and Leslie, thanks for coming tonight. We have a proclamation and appreciate all the work that you do for our children. Our proclamation reads, whereas the General Federation of Women's Clubs, GFWC, is dedicated to strengthening communities and enhancing the lives of others through volunteer service. And GFWC members have played an intricate role in advocating for the health and well-being of children since the early 1900s, with prominent club women such as Jane Addams and Julia Lathrop paving the way for the implementation of improved child labor and juvenile court laws, respectively. And GFWC members actively educate, advocate, and engage in projects concerning the well-being of children via health, social, and safety programs by ensuring children are protected from harmful situations and encouraging healthy physical and emotional lifestyles. GFWC of Rock Springs, Wyoming works diligently to unite club members into a charitable organization of volunteers for the promotion of education, community service, fellowship, and leadership development. And during the 4th week of October, GFWC and its affiliated local clubs stand with parents, grandparents, educators, community leaders, and others in recognizing the important role children play in our lives and raising awareness about issues that directly impact the lives of children everywhere. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Timothy A. Como, Mayor of the City of Rock Springs, do hereby proclaim the week of October 24th through 30th, 2021 to be GFWC Advocates for Children Week in Rock Springs, Wyoming, and commend its observance to all of our citizens. We thank you very much and appreciate you continuing your efforts to protect and create responsible and safe children.
Well, and if I could just make one more comment, that next year at this time, the Women's Club of Rock Springs will be celebrating 100 years of serving this community.
Wow.
So
That's
we thank you for
amazing.
that opportunity as well.
Well, if we could get a quick picture with the proclamation, I'm going to present you the proclamation. Okay, our next proclamation, we have Lung Cancer Awareness Month, November 2021. And make note, you don't have to be a smoker to get lung cancer. As many of us probably know individuals who have ended up with lung cancer that never smoked a cigarette in their life. We don't have anybody here to accept the proclamation, but I'm going to read the proclamation issued by the City of Rock Springs. Whereas lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer death among men and women in the United States and in Sweetwater County in 2021, accounting for more deaths than colon cancer, breast cancer, and prostate cancer combined. And according to the Centers for Disease Control, there were 89 new lung cancer cases and 72 deaths because of lung cancer between 2013 and 2017 in Sweetwater County alone. And the 5-year survival rate for localized lung cancer is 59%, yet only 17% of the lung cancers are diagnosed at this stage. And screening for lung cancer for high-risk individuals using low-dose computed tomography can lead to the earlier detection of lung cancer and save lives, reducing the mortality by 20% when compared to screening by chest x-ray in the National Lung Screening Trial, and reducing the risk of death at 10 years by 24% in men and 33% in women, as demonstrated by another large randomized trial. And funding for lung cancer research trails far behind funding for research of many other cancers, and additional research is needed in early diagnosis, screening, and treatment for lung cancer as well as in lung cancer affecting women and lung cancer health disparities. And lung cancer incidence is decreasing twice as fast in men as it is in women each year. More women die from lung cancer than breast cancer, and by 2035, more women will die from lung cancer than men. And African Americans have the highest lung cancer incidence and mortality of all races, and disparities in lung cancer screening, diagnosis, treatment, and mortality are well characterized among African Americans and other racial minorities. And lung cancer in never smokers is the 7th leading cause of cancer-related death and accounts for 17,000 to 26,000 deaths in the U.S. every year. 60 to 70% of never smokers diagnosed with lung cancer are women, and the proportion of lung cancers diagnosed in never smokers is increasing in the U.S. And organizations working in the Rock Springs community, such as the American Lung Cancer Screening Initiative and Women's Lung Cancer Forum, are committed to educating about lung cancer and lung cancer screening and working to increase lung cancer screening rates in Rock Springs. And now therefore be resolved that I, Timothy A. Como, Mayor of the City of Rock Springs, do hereby declare the month of November 2021 to be Lung Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Rock Springs, and recognize the need for research in lung cancer affecting women and lung cancer health disparities, and encourage all of our citizens to learn about lung cancer and early detection through lung cancer screening. Did everybody get that? Get checked. Do your part, and don't be a statistic. We have another proclamation, Extra Mile Day, which is going to be November 1st, 2021. And I don't believe we have anybody here to accept the proclamation, but the proclamation from the City of Rock Springs reads, whereas Rock Springs acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when its individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And Rock Springs encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contributions to the community by giving of themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. And Rock Springs chooses to shine a light on this and celebrate the individuals and organizations within its community who go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And Rock Springs acknowledges the mission of Extra Mile America to create 550 Extra Mile cities in America, and is proud to support Extra Mile Day on November 1st, 2021, and therefore be it resolved that I, Timothy A. Como, Mayor of the City of Rock Springs, do hereby declare November 1st, 2021 to be Extra Mile Day in the City of Rock Springs, and I urge each individual in the community to take time on this day to not only go the extra mile in his or her own life, but to also acknowledge all those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, their families, and their communities, country, and the world a better place. Go the extra mile. November 1st. Don't let it be November 1st. Go the extra mile anytime. Counselors, this is going to bring us to the public hearing section of our agenda. And we have one item of which we'll take action under Ordinance 2021-17 is a public hearing to gather public view and comments on a proposed mobile establishment regulation ordinance. And before we call for anyone wishing to speak on this proposed ordinance and the language, I've asked City Planner Laura Lay to come up and give us a little bit of overview of where we were, where we are, and where we're going.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Laura Lee, City Planner. Last Monday, we held a workshop, and we discussed mobile vendors, in particular food trucks. And some of the statistics I gave at that meeting was that in 2019, we had 7 mobile vendors under our current ordinance. They're called transient merchants. And in 2021 to date, we've had 21. So they have increased substantially over the last few years. And that's not saying that we only have 21 operating right now. That means that we've had 21 new ones this year, because everybody could renew their license as they go. So that triggers some discussion, because currently the transient merchants or mobile vendors fall under our Peddler and Solicitor ordinance, which is more geared towards your mobile door-to-door salesman, or setting up traveling, going person to person selling goods, typically door to door from a house. So trying to fit these mobile vendors into an ordinance that really wasn't written to address mobile vendors triggered the discussion at the workshop last week. So I've been tasked with creating an ordinance that would take the mobile vendors out of that transient or the Peddler and Solicitor ordinance and creating a standalone ordinance that'll help better address them, streamline the process, create some rules and regulations for them, which we're actually following already. They are regulated, so saying that we're going to have a new regulation isn't exactly correct, because they have been regulated under the Peddlers and Solicitor ordinance. So I'm just going to briefly breeze through the draft ordinance that I presented to you for first reading tonight. And the purpose of this meeting is to gather that public input, council input, so we could take these changes. There's 3 readings to an ordinance, take any changes that council wishes, incorporate them into it, and then move forward from there. So the ordinance starts with the purpose statement. I would like to read that just so that we all can understand what the purpose of this ordinance is. The governing body of the City of Rock Springs, Wyoming recognizes that mobile vendors contribute to the diversity of food and retail options, provides business opportunities for local entrepreneurs, and encourages economic activity in the community. The purpose of this ordinance is to provide regulation of mobile vendors within public and private property to protect the health and safety of city residents and visitors by ensuring mobile vendors follow clear, narrowly tailored regulations that address demonstrable health and safety risks. Next section would be definitions. We define food. Mobile catering and caterer, this is an important new definition. A mobile catering or caterer is a mobile vendor invited as a guest to a property to provide food, drink, or other products intended to be consumed at an event, picnic, bazaar, fair, rodeo, special holiday activity, or similar private gathering where the attendees or patrons do not pay additional individual costs. That's an important definition because that's become exempt from needing these permitting requirements. Mobile vendor, any person that sells or offers for sale goods, products, services, or food from a mobile vending unit within the city. A mobile vending court, this is something new and we talked about it at the last workshop, got this from Sheridan. A group of 2 or more mobile vendors renting, leasing, or using private property to provide a location for mobile vendors to make sales. So basically someone establishing an area that mobile vendors can come in and set up. A mobile vending permit will be a permit issued by the City of Rock Springs that authorizes the use of a mobile vending unit within the City of Rock Springs in accordance with the requirements of this chapter. A mobile vending permit shall be issued in addition to the required occupational tax as outlined in Article 9-2 of the Rock Springs Municipal Code. Another word for occupational tax is business license. Then mobile vending units, basically motorized vehicles defined by state statute, a trailer that's pulled by a motorized vehicle, and also includes tables and other means of product display, provided the goods are transported or delivered to the sale location by a mobile vending unit. A neighborhood mobile vendor, this is also a new definition. This will be your neighborhood ice cream truck because they will be allowed in residential areas as they typically operate. So it is a vendor operating on streets, sidewalks, alleys, or other areas generally accessible to the public in residential zoning districts, which provide a retail sale or service of only ready-to-eat or packaged food in individual servings from a mobile vending unit. So right now, our ordinance doesn't even address ice cream trucks or use within a residential area, even though they do exist. Then we define a special event, basically an event that's authorized, public space authorized by the governing body. And then a stationary vendor. This is also an important new definition. Basically, it's a vendor who operates at one specific site for a period of 30 consecutive days or more. So basically, you have your mobile vendors that are traveling. One day they may set up in Smith's, the next day they may set up at Walmart or something like that. These stationary vendors have more of a fixed location, even though they're still mobile and still could be moved from site to site. They stay in one location for a longer period of time. And as you can see, there will be a process that they'll have to follow for those. So as I already mentioned, the next section goes through a mobile vending permit. So as mentioned earlier, mobile vending permit will be required in addition to the business license. I got this out of Sheridan's ordinance as well. We encourage at least 5 days prior to the sale that they submit this. Unfortunately, we do get transient merchants right now. They want to start selling the next day or that day, and there's actually a processing time that we have to get fire approval, other approvals. So 5 days should be a sufficient period of time. And then we go through the permit requirements, the application. They do need to provide pictures and a description of the mobile vending unit. One thing that is new in here would be a copy of the current Wyoming Department of Agriculture or Sweetwater County Health Department license or their food service permit, if applicable. So if they are a food vendor, they need to have that when they come to our office to get permits. That way, the city staff, we're not wasting our time going through and getting all the fire approvals, everything, if they haven't contacted the health department first to make sure that they can even sell the food products that they're looking at selling and meeting those requirements.
Let me stop
Yes,
you right there.
Please.
can I just show of hands, how many of you are mobile food vendors here? And then another show of hands, how many of you know and already meet this requirement of the county health? So you, okay, thank you. Sorry, Laura.
No problem. So the reason that we're requiring that up front is the county health actually has more stringent requirements than the city does. So we want to make sure that they're going through that process first before coming into the city to pull the permit. Vehicle insurance for the mobile vending unit, and then also the vehicle registration. So all the things that are within this applicant process are things that everybody should have already. We are requiring that the permit that is issued be displayed on the mobile vending unit at all times. That way, if there becomes a complaint, police department goes to investigate or something like that, they can show that they are permitted. And then number 3 is that we'll be creating a standard form, and this is actually the part that I'm excited about. We're going to streamline the form. Instead of having to fill out a form for every specific location that mobile vendor is going to be set upon, we are going to have a standard form that basically they provide all the information that I just went over, and then all the criteria will be spelled out on the form. They sign it, date it, that they understand those requirements and that they're going to follow them. So that whenever, so like on a weekend, they may be invited to another property. Well, we're not open on a Saturday for the applicants to come in and submit a new site plan, a new form, and all that other stuff. So it'll be a nice streamlined process for that. So I'm very excited about that. And then section C is just stating that this doesn't grant permission for sale of alcoholic beverages. There could be additional permits, obviously, through council for that. Cannot block any public right-of-way. If they are a stationary vendor, like I said, if they're going to be parked on a site for a period of 30 days or more, it will require a site plan for those scenarios. And then mobile vending courts as well, site plan and probably a conditional use permit. So after this ordinance goes through a few readings and I get a feel for where the council wants to go with this, in December, likely, I'll be taking language to the Planning and Zoning Commission to update our zoning ordinance so that it'll outline specifically, like in a B2 zoning district, stationary vendors are permitted through a site plan review process. That way it's clear for our staff as well so that we understand the rules. Section D is permit denial, basically falsifying information. The applicant has been convicted for vending without a license as required here under pretty standard language. Permit expiration, annual permits expire on December 31st of each year and shall be renewed annually. That is, falls in line with the business license. That's why that date came in. And then, or they can get a monthly permit. So if they're just traveling through the community and aren't going to be here more than a couple days, there will be a 30-day permit that they can apply for instead of an annual permit. And that expires 30 days after the date of issuance. And then the city may waive the requirement of having a mobile vending permit if the mobile vendor is to be a participant in a special event as previously defined. So that'll, the businesses still need to get their business licenses to sell merchandise and stuff within the city. But if it's a special event like farmer's market or something like that, they're exempt from needing to get this permit for that. So fees. I've been asked, where did I get these fees from? I actually pulled these fees out of our Peddler and Solicitor ordinance. So fees. Applicants for a monthly mobile vending permit shall pay a mobile vending permit fee of $25. Applicants for an annual mobile vending permit shall pay an annual mobile vending fee of $100. So for a year, $100. And again, they can go anywhere as long as they're meeting these criteria throughout the city all year long for that annual permit. Those fees, council can decide what to do with them. Like I said, I pulled them out of the Peddler and Solicitor ordinance. But in my opinion, if you're going to increase these fees, then the Peddler and Solicitor fees should also be increased because they're pretty equivalent as far as the amount of time and the such that goes into the type of permit. Suspension and revocation of a permit, basically fraud, misrepresentation, possession, sale, offering controlled substance. It goes through some pretty standard language here. I'm not going to read all that. Section 10-1105, locations on public or private and public property. So on private property, they do have to get written permission from the property owner. We're not going to ask for it for every site that they're going to be on. Like I said, it's going to be a standard form that they acknowledge that they need to have written permission by that property owner to be on that site. Locations on public property, mobile vendors and neighborhood mobile vendors shall be allowed to operate on public property only upon receiving written permission of the mayor or the mayor's designee. So whoever the mayor designates, likely a department head, for like if they're going to set up for an event for the parks, will require a park department head signature on that. So these are the things that they'll be verifying that they understand and agree to comply with. Hours of operation on public property. Mobile vendors may operate on public property in non-residential zones from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. All mobile vending vehicles and equipment must be removed from the public property by 2 a.m. each day and shall not return prior to 6 a.m. unless otherwise approved with a special event permit. Mobile vendors within 200 feet of a residential zoning district must cease operation by 10 o'clock p.m. Sunday through Thursday and by 12 a.m. on Friday and Saturday unless otherwise approved with a special event. And neighborhood mobile vendors operating within a residential zone must cease operation by 8 p.m. unless otherwise approved with a special event. The mobile vending unit shall be properly secured and open flames extinguished when the unit is unoccupied. Then we go through waste management requirements. Mobile vendors serving food or related items with disposable materials shall provide waste containers. Responsible for maintaining the sidewalk, street, and premises adjacent to their operations free from any rubbish, refuse, or litter. All solid waste shall be disposed of at a proper facility or using a permitted solid waste handling disposal company. At no time shall solid waste be disposed of in unauthorized private or public refuse containers. And then parking and pedestrian access. Mobile vendors must operate their mobile vending unit in a manner that does not impede pedestrian access along the sidewalk or public right-of-way. Must maintain clear pedestrian pathway along the public sidewalks at all times. This we discussed at the workshop. Mobile vending vehicle and associated equipment shall not encroach into a vision clearance triangle formed by lines extending 40 feet from the corner in each direction from the intersection and driveway access. As I mentioned, under zoning, it's more important where these are being located rather than if they're going to be located on a paved surface, unpaved surface. We want to protect people pulling in and out of the property so that they can clearly see the street and not get into any wrecks. Mobile vending vehicles and associated equipment shall be a minimum of 10 feet from fire hydrants as well. We go through noise ordinance, that they must comply with the noise ordinance. Signage, signage attached to the mobile vending unit, exception of one portable sign not to exceed 8 square feet, which shall be removed nightly at the close of business. And then we go through public utilities. The mobile vending unit must be self-contained, may not connect to any utilities while in the public right-of-way. Mobile vending units on private property may take water or power from a private property service with written permission of the owner, provided that connections and cords must be properly sized for the intended use, and cabling and other devices or equipment must be properly secured and marked across pedestrian ways to avoid tripping and other hazards. Mobile vending units may receive written approval from the designated department head or designee to connect to city-owned power sources in public parks or other public areas of the city of Rock Springs. So there needs to be some type of permission there. Wastewater. All wastewater generated must be contained in a manner that does not create unsanitary conditions or creates a public health hazard while being held for disposal. Disposal of all wastewater must occur in a continuous manner at a permitted wastewater facility. The city water reclamation facility may be contacted for this disposal during normal business hours. Vendors may also utilize permitted waste haulers to service the mobile vending unit as long as no contamination of the ground or adjacent areas occurs. Records of all disposal locations and/or services by a waste hauler must be maintained on the unit at all times for review at the request of the City of Rock Springs. This record shall include the location, date, time, and hauler name, contact information, certification information. And any vendor found to be illegally disposing of their wastewater or solid waste will have their license revoked and shall not be eligible for another license for a period of 2 years. The legal disposal will also be reported to the appropriate state and federal agencies to prosecute accordingly. And then the enforcement is our standard, must comply with all other applicable local, state, federal laws. And then the violation, punishable by a fine not more than $750. So, there. So that is the first draft of the ordinance. Appreciate everybody's help that helped with that. Like I said, any feedback at this time would be much appreciated. And we'll go from there with it.
Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the overview, and I'd also like to thank everybody who showed up tonight. Normally, we start down these paths because we have some antiquated ordinances on the books that don't meet today's needs, and by the number of mobile food vendors that we see out there, we needed to create something that made sense, but we wanted to do that with the input of those of you who are working in that world and making a living or creating a revenue source from that. So I would ask at this time, if there's anyone wishing to comment at this public hearing, come up, state your name for the record so we can get it on the record, and let us know what your thoughts are on the first draft of the ordinance itself. What don't you like? What do you like? Just give us your input. Come on down.
Thanks for the invite tonight.
You bet.
Your Honor and City Council, my name's Lou DePoyster. My wife and I have the Native Son unit. I thought the ordinance was really well written and was pretty much everything that Mr. Couchage informed us of when we first started doing this a couple years ago. Nothing much out of the ordinary, rather than that. Two things that I wanted to caution about, or talk about. One was the verbiage on property owner. That's a tough one when you get to a place like, you know, Liquor Depot over there, or, you know, Home Depot, getting that paperwork. We'd get it from the managing director, the person that was there, and make sure that everybody, you know, that we were on their insurance or they were on our insurance. A binder. We use, you know, Cody Pierpoint over there at State Farm. But getting the actual property owner signature, you know, that's tough because, you know, ultimately, is it the owner? No, it's a general manager, Home Depot, you know? And you know, written, we're pretty much, you know, cell phone text basis with the owners where we park. So is that okay for written authorization? Hey, Lane, can I park at Home Depot this Friday? Yes, you can. Jesse, can I park at Johnny Mac's? Yes, you can. Is that legit? I don't know.
I would say that's legit. I mean, I think where the ordinance is going is that say Home Depot, for instance, when you know you have approval and you're waiting on a signature. I think the biggest thing is if someone, you know, maybe you get a complaint and they check and you don't have approval. I mean, somebody on the phone could simply say, yeah, I haven't got time to do the paperwork, but yes, they have approval. I think a verbal, to me, makes sense. You're doing what you should be doing.
Your Honor,
Councilman
maybe recommend a change in the wording than an owner or authorized representative. It might be a little more clear.
The other thing, if you're ready to move on with this, is the waste management. You know, I'll give you guys as much info as you want. You know, I'll tell you the way I do it. I can't speak for anybody else, any of these other food trucks. And after reading this ordinance, I wonder if I'm doing the right thing. We wash our hands in that trailer. We use soap. We use Dawn dishwashing liquid, very little. We outsource our dishwashing. That's the last thing we want to do in our trailer when we're making food, is deal with dirty dishes. We come prepared, ready to cook food, serve, boom, put everything away. We outsource our dishwashing. So the only thing that we're packing around in our gray water tanks is hand washing, you know, and vegetable washing type water. When I roll up to we finish a set, I roll into a car wash, because I thought that a car wash was an approved wastewater disposal type of an outfit, you know. And I drop $20 at that car wash. Every time I pull up to a car wash, it's $20 minimum. I hose that thing down, we clean it out, and I usually dump my hand washing, vegetable washing water right there in the sump. I don't know if that's if that's legit. And one other thing I want to add to that, and then I'm done, is when we're out at these small towns, in Rock Springs, we park on the pavement, Green River on the pavement. You get out to Mountain View or Lyman or some of these other places, you're parking on the dirt, whether you like it or not, and they have you there and all that. When it comes time for winter, and I get up on that interstate at 80 miles an hour, that stuff freezes. I'm gonna freeze everything up. So I'm very cautious about the temperature and when the time comes for me to dump my tanks, because I will dump my tanks rather than freeze up my plumbing system. I'm not dumping anything bad in my mind. I'm dumping water and hand washing water like we talked about. But I'll drop everything, fresh water and everything, as soon as we leave a location, because I got to get back to town. And once I hit 70 or whatever the weather conditions are, you can imagine. So I just think that maybe some thought needs to go into some of that stuff. And I'm more than willing to talk to you all about, we email back and forth. I'll send you an email with this after any of that. I think that's about all I got to say, but I'll answer any questions.
Any questions?
Your Honor,
Councilman Robinson?
I think in that case, when you go to Mountain View or someplace outside the city of Rock Springs, you're going to be regulated by whatever their ordinance or their regulations would be. You wouldn't be falling under our ordinance. We wouldn't be requiring you to bring your water back and dispose of it in Rock Springs. Would I be wrong there, Mr. Beckwith?
No, Councilor Robinson, you would not be incorrect.
So then, this would kind of get into something that we would call a paper tiger when I worked in the government. And that would be, if I'm having to keep track of logs and records, how do I show those records when I'm dumping my tanks? And you know what I'm saying? If it turns into a log and record deal, or I have to go to a facility and pay somebody to dump 5 gallons of water, and the travel time and all. I just think that maybe we can think about that a little bit more, and if that is the case, no problem. I mean, I would be very interested in coming up with a wastewater disposal unit to because that's what we would all have to be doing, a certified kind of a unit. I think that's going down another path. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. That was helpful. We appreciate the
Your Honor,
comments.
I think we can work on some of that language in accordance with our sector control policy through the wastewater department.
Yeah.
We'll look at all that language and try to clarify it some.
Thanks, Paul. I think that is workable. Anyone else?
Mayor, Councilman, Robert Cornman, Cornman's Kettle Corn, myself, my wife, we've been doing our kettle corn for 17 years. We've been, when we started, we came to the PAW with the county health to make sure we were doing things correctly there. We came to the city, we came to the fire department, we took and we did everything we needed to do and pack out all the permits, all the licensing, and we have carried those every year, okay? There has never been anybody trying to regulate us any way, shape, or form, once we got our permits. The only people that ever come around to check on us would be the health department. On several times, every year, the health department come by and make sure that we're doing our things correctly and everything's the way it's supposed to be. My question is, if we get this ordinance in effect, who's going to regulate it, other than being ourselves self-regulating as it is? You know, I mean,
I
you
think,
guys don't have time for all that.
I think, Rob, as Laura stated, the vast majority of this is, being as we have so many vendors, is basically everybody basically takes a responsibility and reads through the requirements. And
Right.
you make sure that you're doing what you need to do. Unless there's a complaint, of course, we're not going to be out there looking
Right.
for problems. You're going to take a responsibility to know, I'm going to do this. This is my business. I agreed to do these things, and I'm going to check them off the list, and that's it.
Right, and I agree. That's exactly what we have to do as vendors.
Right.
But what happens, and I'm sure that's where this has come about, is we have a lot of those that just pop up literally. They're squatters. They show up and they start selling their goods and doing their things. They don't have no permits. They've got no permissions. They have nothing, and nobody to tell them not to do it. And I think this regulation is a good idea. I mean, we need some ordinances to protect us.
Absolutely.
Us that have invested a lot of time and effort and money into this, we need something to protect us.
Well, that's exactly why we're here. And
You know?
I think all in all, it's still a small town, and say we
Sure.
have 20, 25 vendors. Everybody knows who's doing what.
Right.
And every once in a while, and it's usually on a weekend, you're going to see somebody pop in from out of town, coming off the interstate, whatever, pull up shop with no permission anywhere, not knowing, no license, no anything, and someone's going to complain. I guarantee it. And that's when the enforcement's going to come in. The PD is going to get a call to go check on this individual, and that's where it's all going to fall down right there.
Right. So I guess I have the one question then is concerning, we pay for our city business license every year. And now we're going to pay for a vendor's license on top of our city business license to be able to do business because we're kind of a mobile business. So now we're going to pay again for another license. Is that correct? I mean, that's what we're looking at,
The way
right?
it's written, yeah, and that's why we're
Right.
here, to have this
Right.
discussion, to figure if that's going to be the case, what it is, what's going to be the fee, if we need to go back and modify the peddler's fees as well. But that's what this is
Right.
exactly what this meeting's all about, Rob, is a public hearing to try to get your concerns.
Sure, I mean, and I agree. I don't mind paying another fee. I'd like to be a little bit more reasonable. I think $100 on top of my $50 license, business license, I think it's a little steep. And it's something that I do in the summer. I mean, I've got 2 more events to do, and I'm done until next spring.
Right.
And I feel that might be a little bit steep.
I have a question then too, because typically these fees are to cover administrative costs.
Sure.
And so, do we know, I mean, is this really just pulling a number from an ordinance, or it had to be at one point in time that we looked at this and said, $100 covers the administration fees because this is the time and effort put into it each time we process a license? Is that correct, or is it, how do we determine?
That
An
is
adequate
pretty
fee.
much correct.
I mean,
And
that's-
basically, that's a comparison from numerous similar ordinances that we've seen around the state that people like Sheridan that spend a lot of time seem to do a good job trying to get some idea of how much time and effort it took staff to process the documents and the like.
So that's, I guess, kind of what I mean is we look at like Sheridan, but did they take the time, or are they just pulling numbers? I mean,
Copy and pasting from somebody else.
From somebody else, right? I mean, so, I mean, is it, have we really as a city, as our own organization,
and one of my
look and
notes,
see what the time is to process these things and
And-
know what the costs are that we need to cover?
and one of my notes on the ordinance itself is simply that, discuss fees, and the city council will determine what those fees are gonna be, so.
Mayor,
we can
Councilor
do that.
Zadi, may I address your concerns? I think when it comes to these types of fees, there certainly does, as you posit have to be a rational basis for the fee. I don't think that you necessarily have to narrow it down to the specific amount of staff time that it requires to process it. Rather, the question should be, is the fee reasonable based upon the amount of staff time that you know has to be taken to do that? And so I think the question should revolve around whether or not the fee is reasonable or not based upon that.
Your Honor,
Councilman Robinson?
if I can just throw a question out there, and I'm not exactly sure who would be addressed to, maybe you, Laura, and maybe you. How often do you have to make contact with the city to say, hey, this weekend I'm going to be at this location, this weekend I'm going to be at this location? Because right now, $100 is roughly $8 a month, and that's, you know, barely above minimum wage for the amount of time that it would take somebody to do the processing. Laura, can you maybe answer that for me, or for us? And that's without adding on the business license. That's
Yep.
just the.
Our current policy is that for every location that they go to, they have to fill out a new form. And every time they fill out a new form, Kathy enters in the information, scans it in, and then we approve that location. A site plan is submitted with that. Right now, we're just lumping it all under the business license fee. So the $25 for the 30-day and the $100 for the year are in line with our site plan review process fees and our conditional use process fees. So that's kind of where, and then the existing fees that are in the ordinance now for peddlers and solicitors. So that's where I got them from. Sheridan's is actually $200 a year. And then for their mobile food courts, it's $400 a year. And I just felt like personally that didn't fit within the fee structure of other fees that I have on a planning department level. So that's where I got that from. But
Okay.
again, the council makes this decision on fees and what those rates are. Now, the business license is actually a tax. That's the whole different game when
Right.
it comes to the business. And Matt McBurnett could speak more on that, so if he needed to.
But does he want to?
If he wants to.
No, we get that, and thanks, Laura. That brings a little bit more light to where the fee structure came from. I'm not sure if it'll end up there, but at least that's where we're starting out, Rob.
Okay, well, something that Laura- she just brought up is because we move around every weekend. I mean, virtually there isn't a weekend we're not set up popping somewhere. And maybe obviously I've been doing it right. I should be contacting the city for every weekend where I go set up somewhere, even though it's 99% of the time it's on private property, unless I'm doing an event that's the event organizers have already set up, and we pay them to be at that event, which is on them at that point, I would assume, to set up with the city, that they're gonna have vendors at that event. So, you know, I set up, I guess if it's on public property, then I don't need to inform you, is that correct?
Under the current ordinance, for every location, you're supposed to be coming into the city and filling out a site plan and a supplemental sheet. And this is exactly why we're here, because the current process is very clumsy and confusing.
Yes.
So this is example, yeah, so this is a prime example of why we're here tonight, is just to try to streamline all of that into a simpler form process.
Would it make more sense if somebody is moving around and other than coming into the city and the like, could they possibly scan site plan in and email it to Kathy? Is that a possibility?
Under the proposed ordinance, we're not even gonna require a site plan unless they are a stationary vendor
Oh, gotcha.
or a
Right.
mobile food court,
Gotcha.
so. And in your case, you've been established on that property for, I don't know how long you've been set up there on that property in a stationary location, so.
Councilman Batolo?
So basically what you're saying is it's gonna be more efficient, you're gonna be able to make the list for all summer, if you will, and then you won't have to worry about it, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So that's more efficient for you guys.
Well, yeah, it would be, except, you know, events pop up all the time. and say, hey, can you come over here and pop over here this weekend?
But you're not gonna need a scheduled
But we
event.
should
You
need
don't,
a-
you don't, you
right,
don't,
we
you won't
just-
need one under
so
the
if
new.
if that would work, we just say, okay, you know, because all the vendors are moving around, in the city of Rock Springs.
Hence the term mobile.
Turn them up.
If I could,
Even though I put mine behind me, I still gotta set everything up.
and that's what streamlines this, from my
Right.
understanding, is you're not gonna have to list those. It is incumbent on you to get permission from the property owner or from the city for public right-of-way.
Right.
As long as you're doing that, you're fine, and you're not gonna have to schedule each location you're going to or anything. Just make sure you're following and getting the proper permissions.
Correct.
So, you know, that's one thing, in a good way, reason why we're going over this too, when you look at 7 vendors in 2019, now 21 in 2021, I bet if we asked everybody here, everyone's got a different opinion on what the ordinance is right now. You know, you weren't aware that you had to report all,
not at
you
all.
weren't aware on the waste disposal. So that's part of why we're here, is because we're seeing this as a growing business, an opportunity for people, and we're seeing that there's some confusion within the law, and our ordinance is a little antiquated because it doesn't deal with this particular
Right.
business. So what we're trying to do is streamline the process and make it a fair, level playing field for everybody. And I know I saw and heard a lot of comments, we're trying to make money off this, we're trying to shut out food trucks. No, that's not the case at all. We want to make sure everybody understands what they're doing, how to play fair, and everybody get along. And if we had 100 food trucks, it doesn't matter to me. You know, as long as everybody's out making money, doing their thing, and doing it all right.
Right.
You know,
Our
that's-
goal is,
that's our goal.
we want you guys to provide options to the community. I mean, people, they want to see options, not only our bricks and mortar businesses, but our food vendors and the like. And the goal here is simply, as Councilman Zadi stated, not having anything on the books that addressed this amount of interest in mobile food vendor. So just to make sure everybody's treated fairly. No, it's not to make money, but to streamline it, so it's not as much of a hassle to you. And we can get it through it quickly, and everybody is treated fairly.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's a hassle. I just need to know what it is.
Right.
That's it. And I, you know, I read your Facebook post and everything else, and then I read your response, which made a whole lot more sense than the rat and the raven that was going on prior to that. It was just the fact that we're trying to get something out there that wasn't there in the past.
Well, I think we should always solve
And-
everything on Facebook, because
You know,
it's pretty legit.
I hate social media. It's a pain. But if we do something, we try to make it fair for everybody.
Right.
You know, and then obviously get our input, and let's, you know, let's make, you know, 'cause this is a good city, man. There's a reason
Well-
why we all live here.
We're going
You
through
know?
3 readings, and something's gonna come to your mind at the next couple of meetings, that maybe you forgot or you want to bring up. That's why I'm so glad. I think the last meeting we had, I don't think we had not one person. And then the city goes through and we decide what we're gonna do for you guys to operate. That's not the way this
No, it
works.
shouldn't be, no.
It's supposed to include public comment. You guys are out there on the streets doing this. This is what we think is fair. What do you think, kind of thing. This is actually great. And one other question that's even more critical, did you bring any kettle corn?
No, we didn't, we will be
Application
we will be
denied.
popping for the Halloween stroll, though, just so y'all know. We'll be downtown for Halloween
We have 2
stroll,
more readings,
which is
Rob.
a city provided. Thank you very much.
Hey,
Appreciate your
thanks,
time.
Rob. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We'll get through this. Anyone else? Come on up.
My name is Sherelle O'Driscoll, and I am the little ice cream truck that goes through the neighborhood with cream on the move. So my question is, I only operate basically at till the weather is nice, and then October 31st is going to be when I shut down. So I'm kind of only like a 6-month vendor. So I was wondering if there was a way that you could do like a half a year, 6-month type thing, because I'm not going to run in the winter. It's not worth it for me. And then when it comes to going through the neighborhoods, and you said that we need to shut down at 8, in the summer, everybody's out in their yard, 8:30, sometimes 9 o'clock, I'm still running the truck, and people are still flagging me down. I have turned the music box
That was
off,
probably me, by the way.
but I've turned the music box off because I don't want to mess with that ordinance that I'm too loud, but I also at the same time don't want to turn down when I have people at the end of their driveway or at the end of the next street, or they're texting the thing saying, come over here.
So would
I
9
would think,
o'clock?
that's usually what I've been telling everybody, is we operate till 9 o'clock. That would be
Did you know, Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman
our
West.
current ordinance prevents playing music?
Yeah.
So your ice cream truck doesn't even, it's illegal essentially. So that's another
You
reason
have
we're here
been
tonight, is
breaking
to
the
fix
law
that,
for-
because it's kind of hard to have an ice cream
They
truck.
didn't tell me that when I got my permit.
By God.
Yeah, we learned that, and that's again why we're here tonight, because little things like that came up. It's pretty impossible to sell ice cream if you can't play music. So
Yeah,
Right.
like the kids hear me and they're chasing me down on their bike and stuff,
Right.
so
Yeah.
it's fun, and that's what we want it to be about.
The ice cream music is typically better than the music that I'm hearing from a couple of my neighbors. So
I get that.
I have 32 different songs, so I can change it around.
Well, that's Sherelle, that's good information, and why we're here. So we'll add that to the language and have that discussion and
Go from there.
go
Make
from
me
there.
where I'm not illegal driving.
Hey, this is
oh, we're dumping in car washes. We're doing all kinds of stuff.
being
We can clean it
serious.
up.
I right before we started down this path, I had a individual show up to my office and was seriously concerned over being thrown in jail over a lemonade stand, and it was like, I don't think that's what we're here for. But good discussion.
Your Honor,
Thank you.
Councilman, what's your name?
Halter,
Halter.
Halter. Can I offer a suggestion on the permit costs? Obviously, most of the people here operate in a season. Rather than having a monthly, could we just have 6 months, or like a summer and a winter period, not have a monthly or an annual? Just, I'm thinking $50 for 6 months of operation, but don't make it too convoluted where, you know, I pay from October to this month. No, just make it a summer and a winter season. I think that would make a lot of sense as well.
Food for thought, Councilman Halter.
No pun intended.
Right. Welcome.
Mayor, council. My name is Mike Nonberg. My wife and myself run the Buffalo 44 wood-fired pizza. The question I have is on 10-1106 on B. That's probably, I'm assuming, fire chief, where it says open flame. So we don't have any flame. We really don't cook with any grease or anything. Basically, we have a 20-foot trailer. 14 foot of that trailer is kitchen, and the last 6 foot is a deck with a brick oven in the back. So we have an open flame in that oven. It is contained, but when we are mobile, we have 2 barriers. We shut 2 metal plates. We have an inside door and an outside door. Are we still good to travel with that? Am I just overreading this? What are we talking open flame? It's kind of hard to extinguish it. When you run that oven, you spill stuff in there, so we let it burn, and that oven basically gets the temperature and it just bakes everything off in there. So are we still good?
So, Your Honor, I
Yes, Chief.
would have to review the actual fire code to tell you for sure, but I don't think there's an issue with that because you are in effect sealing that off.
Okay.
But I can't tell you that without getting with the fire inspector and reviewing the actual fire code to make sure.
I get the looks when I go to the gas station and I've got smoke barreling out of a chimney and I'm pumping 40 gallons of diesel, but I mean, it's contained in there. We have a cap on the vent and everything. So I just wanted to make sure. I didn't know if that was more or less open flame for grease as you're, you know.
Yeah, I would assume that would be concerning grease and grease vapors.
All right.
Chief
Thank you.
Walmsley will check into that. Appreciate the
All right, thank you.
concern. We'll look into that one.
My name's Sonia Galegas. I'm the owner and operator of Hoarder's Corner Thrift Store. I am currently with the Planning and Zoning. I have an open parking lot. It is B2 district zoned. I have been approved to have permanent food trucks on my lot. I am in coordinates right now working with Chavez Concrete. Once this snow will clear, to actually put some concrete on that lot. When I got into that building, my goal was to look at it as a food court. To bring mobile vendors to this lot, to where people could come, we'll get picnic tables, different things out there. Well, families could actually come and enjoy different foods. As it's coming winter now, I have one food truck permanently on my lot, which is the pupusa truck. Last Tuesday, when the roads were closed, she was super busy because that was somewhere to give them, somewhere to come, somewhere to eat. I'm not gonna lie, yes, they came in my thrift store to visit, different things like that. On my particular property, I have two entrances. One can be used as an entrance, the other can be used as an exit. We have designated parking per planning and zoning now to where there is parking on the lot for the regular citizens to come to use that facility for this reason, that reason. It is asphalt basically right now. It's been grounded in for oh so long. It's just an option. It's a food for thought. The owner, which she has given me permission to sign for any food trucks or mobile food trucks that would like to come, and they're welcome to come for a day. They can stay for 30 days. They could stay for 6 months. I am working on with Rocky Mountain Power right now. They were out there today, and I am working with Rocky Mountain Power, myself and the owner, Carla DeSalvo, to get another power pole on the property so we have an actual lighting area, because it is kind of dark right now. It's just an option to give it out there for the mobile food trucks or different options, because it's there. It's 2.5 acres. There's 2 other businesses on the lot, myself, there's Impact Mobile Homes, and then Silverado Auctions has her auction trailer on our lot. Right now it's winter, she's not doing auctions, but in that same scenario, once she did an auction or 2, the mobile vendors could come there and they could get the benefits of those also.
Sonia, in regards to the ordinance, did you see something in there that you didn't like, you wanted to add?
No, I like it. I'm just coming to you guys to give it to you as in, that's a spot for them to stay. They could come for 30 days and stay there. They could come for 15 days and stay there. I haven't had any problems. I've gone through all the hooplas of, thanks to the nice firemen and all the ordinances about, things that needed to be cleaned up on that property that hadn't been done for 30 years. It's just giving people more of an option now. Because some people rely on their food trucks all year long. That's an option that says, here, you could be here. I have it to where I have Wild West Weed Control, Corey Gunderson. He's been doing all of my plowing, my snow removal, so it'll be snow plowed every day. I think it's good so far. I think there's a few nicks and crannies that need to be adjusted, like with the fees and whatnot for people. On that side of it, I don't know what their fees are. I don't know what their food costs are. I know in the restaurant business right now, because I work the restaurant business, food is outrageous right now. Like, food costs are super high. And then, all the different stuff that we have to do for the restaurant business prior to what their food trucks are. Maybe that's something to look at for their fees wise. Okay? Anybody have any questions for me?
What was your what's the address?
1659 Elk Street.
Okay,
I'm across from the C-store and the Satellite. It used to be registered under KJ Mobile Homes.
I just couldn't remember the name, the number.
And it will be fenced. We have some different things in the work finally that are getting processed, but I just wanted to get it out there that option is there too. It's coming winter and the roads are closed. Those truck drivers were hitting that lot. They were walking down the street, they didn't care, and that poor little lady ran out of food. So, anybody else have any questions?
Good. Council? Thanks, Sonia.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Mayor?
Did you bring food?
Truck's parked for the winter, so. I do have a question, about the stationary, deal. After 30 days, how long do you have to leave the lot before you're able to go back for another 30 days?
That's a good question.
Could we set it up just to
And
renew it?
Say, for instance, I'm on this lot, and I might be there for 29 days. Then I have an event. I come back to the lot. Where do I start from?
Yeah, we can look at that.
Okay.
For the record, tell Kristen name and food vendor.
Fred Hutton, Hut's Texas Style Barbecue. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a
Your
good
Honor,
question.
I've just got a question. It's, because we have an ordinance with, and it, more for officer, or for Chief Pacheco. Are you paying attention?
We were discussing the ordinance,
When
Counselor.
someone has an unlicensed vehicle or trailer that's parked in front of their home, they have it there for 3 days, I believe. Isn't it, they can just move it and then come back? What's the time frame there?
Your Honor, Councilman Zadi, it's 100 hours, and it is specific in the ordinance. You can't just move it and then move it back.
That's what I wonder what the time frame, because there would probably be something fairly similar to what we'd want to do for something like this then, I would imagine.
Well, I think the difference would be that that's parked on a city street as
Well, yeah,
opposed to.
It's 100.
Private property or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Some good discussion.
Mayor and council, the main reason we had that 30 days in there is to establish more of a site plan review process for the ones that are going to be at a location for more than a day or two. Make sure that they have the trash receptacles, driveways, traffic circulations and the such. But that is a very good question. I'll have to do some research on that and come back with a recommendation on that.
Thanks, Laura.
You bet.
Nice. Anyone else? I see a couple vendors that aren't saying a word. Anybody have any comments, suggestions?
I'm very surprised that all the people that were so vocal on Facebook aren't here to share their concerns.
I just, we have 2 more readings to go through, and by all means, if we get to the 3rd reading, and we still have issues to work out, we'll pump the brakes a bit and just make sure that when we roll this out, it's as fair as it possibly can, and it does those things that we intended to do. It streamlines the process, it treats everybody fairly, and it creates business in our community. That's really what we're after. No, the city's not here to get rich off of $50, $100 a year, whatever it ends up being, but I believe by the time we go through the winter, we'd like to have it rolled out by the 1st of the year.
I believe the discussion we had in the workshop, correct me if I'm wrong, but we normally send renewals out around December 1st. So we were trying to kind of not streamline it, but get it on tonight for the first reading so that by the end of November, we'll be ready to go for those renewals.
Right. Thanks, Councilor West.
And on that, yes.
Yeah.
Can we just do a prorate at that point? I mean, if somebody comes in May, then just prorate it, whatever the monthly fee is, and then prorate from that. To me, makes sense rather than the $100, but.
Mayor?
Richard?
If I may, I think what we'll do is take the suggestions that have been made tonight, and Laura and I will get together and put together a list of proposed amendments that the council will have to take a look at next time and vote on, probably individually for each proposed amendment that was brought up tonight. And then we'll present that to the council next week, and then you folks can decide for each
Right.
one of those which ones you want to add to, or take away from the ordinance. So Laura and I'll get together and prepare those for you for the next meeting.
Can I make a suggestion for one too then? Just on the insurance end, it does require for vehicle insurance, but I do think if it's gonna be on public property, we need to have some verification for general liability insurance as well. And on private property, I think to me that's between the owner of the property and the food vendor, but I think on public property, we need to have that confirmation there.
Thanks, Councilman. And I think it's critical that Cheryl get change for the ice cream truck and consider hot fudge sundaes in the wintertime. Hey, I appreciate everybody's comments. This is good discussion, and already you can see the reason why it's needed. We've taken a lot of notes. We'll take these notes, revise what we have, bring it back on the second reading, and we'll hash it out again.
Your Honor, can I make one more comment? And just to thank everybody for coming and participating and listening and being here. That's when I started seeing comments on Facebook. That's one thing I made a point of saying is this is your time. Come here tonight and listen, make comments. This is where it happens. It doesn't happen on social media. It happens here in this room. And so I do appreciate everybody coming, taking your time out of your evening and helping us out here. Because the last thing we want to do, and we want to talk this through, anytime you do an ordinance, you always have a possibility of unintended consequences. You know, we may think we're doing the right thing. You are the people out there doing this daily. You know what you're running into. You know what you're running against. We need your input. And anything you can help us with, it's greatly appreciated. So, thank you.
Absolutely. One comment was, Matt McBurnett posted something about, send your comments and to include them in the packet. And somebody said, why does Matt get to make the decision on whose comments get to go in the packet? Or social media, like I said, if we would just all do business and make decisions on social media, I'm sure it'd be a better world. But it takes some time to get up, come down here, and the first thing that's gonna happen is those people that did not show up tonight, we're gonna get to the third reading, we're gonna roll it out, they're not gonna be happy, and they're gonna show up and just rip their councilman or myself or whoever else. And then the first question I always ask, we had 3 readings. We asked for your input and you never showed up, so how would I know this? Send a letter, do something, but participate in the process. We work for you. That's what we're here for.
Your Honor, can I make a comment too? I'd just like to thank Laura and legal staff and probably fire we had the workshop last Monday and packets went out Friday. So I mean, in a matter of 3 days, they came up with this ordinance and put something together for all you guys to review and chime in on. So I appreciate staff and echo Councilman Zotti's comments on you all attending too. It's a lot of help.
Absolutely. And very frustrating, even at that meeting, a workshop that was scheduled, I don't think there was one person. So that discussion where you see this today came from all of us up here that don't have a food truck.
Although we do eat at them.
Yeah. So anyway.
Semi-regularly.
Appreciate that. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to close that public hearing, and we're going to move on to the petitions section of our agenda. And I would just ask if there's anyone here tonight that wishes to address the city council on any other issue, please come on down to the podium. And
y'all can stay. Pretty exciting.
Wing, did you bring food? Yeah. Right.
Can I bring my food truck and feed everybody next time?
Yes.
I'll park it right here in front of us. I'll feed everybody in this room.
Be sure to give us your site plan, please.
If you guys like
long as you don't plug into our outlet. We're a little bit low on funds for electric bills.
I'll be there. Okay, once again, the regular petition section of our agenda. Is there anyone here tonight who wishes to address the city council on?
I agree.
Anyone? Public hearings? We have cleaned out the house. We still have a lot of work to do. I'm going to close the public hearing section of our agenda, councilors, and move on to officers and staff reports, which we have 2 items. One, the health insurance fund recap for September 2021, and the Rock Springs Housing Authority quarterly report. Councilors, I would entertain a motion to approve the officer and staff reports and place on file.
So moved.
We do have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this is going to bring us to our council committee and board reports. We have item number 1, the Rock Springs Historical Board meeting minutes of September 8th, 2021. Are there any other reports that wish to come before the governing body? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the council committee and board reports in place on file.
So moved, Your Honor.
So moved.
We do have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Councilors, bring us to correspondence. We have 2 items. Unless there are questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the correspondence and
We need to-
place it on file.
Sorry to pick on you, Your Honor, but we need a formal vote from everyone. We had a motion and a second on the council committee and board reports. You're
I
hungry.
was just gonna yell at aye and see what happens.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? I think it's all the food I have on my mind. Okay. Where were we? Correspondence?
Yeah.
2 items. Unless there are questions, councilors, I'd entertain a motion to approve the correspondence and place on file.
Your Honor, so moved.
We do have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this brings us to bills and claims, councilors. Item number 1, the bills and claims for October 19th, 2021. What's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Demus?
I make a motion to approve the bills and claims for October 19th, 2021.
We do have a motion to approve the bills and claims for October 19th, 2021. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstained.
Let the record show. And item number 2, the salaries for October 7th, 2021. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Demus?
I make a motion to approve the salaries for October 7th, 2021.
Councilors, we do have a motion to approve the salaries for October 7th, 2021. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going to move on to new business, councilors. Item number 1 under new business is a request from the fire department for permission to fill a vacant firefighter position. What's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman West?
move to approve this request.
We do have a motion to honor this request from the fire department. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And item number 2 is a request from the Engineering Operations and Public Services Department for permission to fill a vacant water reclamation facility plant operator 1 position. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Savage?
I move to approve this request.
We do have a motion to approve this request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And item number 3 is a request from the Parks and Rec Department for permission to bid a new playground for Bunning Park. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Halter?
move to approve that request.
We do have a motion to honor this request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 4 is a request from the Parks and Rec Department for permission to apply for 2 Sweetwater Travel and Tourism grants for the Wind and Mud and drop-in hockey tournaments. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Honor, move to approve this request.
We do have a motion to approve this request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And item number 5 is a request from the police department for permission to fill a vacant record supervisor position. Counselors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Demus.
I make a motion to approve this request.
We do have a motion to approve this request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, councilors, going to roll us into the resolution section of our agenda. We have 8 items, the first being from the Housing Authority, Resolution 2021-145.
A resolution authorizing Timothy A. Como, acting in his capacity as chairman of the board for the Rock Springs Housing Authority, to execute change order number 1 to the contract for professional services with Tri-Hydro Corporation for the Rock Springs Housing Authority.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman West?
move to approve Resolution 2021-145.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2021-145. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Counselor Demas,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Vitolo,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Item number 2, Resolution 2021-146.
A resolution to formally release, vacate, and abandon the city's interest in sanitary sewer easement granted and dedicated by Union Pacific Land Resources Corporation to John R. Karishnik, Eileen C. Karishnik, Thomas J. Karishnik, and Mary J. Karishnik.
Krishishnik.
We knew what you meant. Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Batolo.
move to approve Resolution 2021-146.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2021-146. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Counselor Zadi,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Vitolo,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. And item number 3, Resolution 2021-147.
A resolution to formally release, vacate, and abandon a sanitary sewer easement deeded to the city of Rock Springs, Wyoming by T&M Kershishnik Investment Company and trustees of the Eileen C. Kershishnik Trust.
Great job.
Nailed it.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman West?
move to approve Resolution 2021-147.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2021-147. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's called. Roll call.
Counselor Halter,
Yes.
Vitolo,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. One more try, Mr. McBurnett. Resolution 2021-148.
A resolution to formally release, vacate, and abandon a sanitary sewer easement dedicated to the city of Rock Springs, Wyoming by T&M Kershishnik Investment Company and trustees of the Eileen C. Kershishnik Trust.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Demas.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-148.
We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2021-148. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Counselor Batolo,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Item number 5, Resolution 2021-149.
A resolution accepting and approving a grant award agreement between the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security and the City of Rock Springs, and authorizing Timothy A. Como as mayor of the City of Rock Springs, Wyoming, and Matthew L. McBurnett as city clerk of the City of Rock Springs to execute said grant award on behalf of said city.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Batolo.
move to
Or
approve Resolution
Councilman?
2021-149.
I apologize. It's been a long night. We do have a motion to approve Resolution 2021-149. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Counselor West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. And item number 6, resolution 2021-150.
A resolution authorizing Timothy A. Como as mayor of the city of Rock Springs and Matthew L. McBurnett as city clerk of the city of Rock Springs to execute an agreement for disbursement, receipt, and use of grant funds with the Sweetwater County Joint Travel and Tourism Board.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Demus?
I make a motion to approve resolution 2021-150.
We do have a motion to approve resolution 2021-150. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconds called. Roll call.
Councilor Hickerson,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Item number 7, resolution 2021-151.
A resolution accepting and approving an amended updated statement of licenses and services attachment for Full Court Enterprises court management software between Justice Systems, Inc. and the city of Rock Springs, Wyoming, and authorizing Timothy A. Como as mayor of the city of Rock Springs, Wyoming, and Matthew L. McBurnett as city clerk of the city of Rock Springs, Wyoming, to execute said attachment on behalf of the city.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman West?
move to approve resolution 2021-151.
We do have a motion to approve resolution 2021-151. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconds called. Roll call.
Councilor Savage,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. And item number 8, resolution 2021-152.
A resolution accepting and approving a change request to the open-end lease rate quotes provided to the city of Rock Springs with the master equity lease agreement by Enterprise Fleet Management for the lease of 2021 vehicles for the Rock Springs Police Department, and authorizing Timothy A. Como as mayor of the city of Rock Springs to execute said lease quotes on behalf of said city.
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman Halter?
move to approve resolution 2021-152.
We do have a motion to approve resolution 2021-152. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconds called. Roll call.
Councilor Robinson,
Yes.
Demus,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Councilors, it's going to bring us on to the ordinance section of our agenda. We have 6 ordinances. Item number 1, ordinance 2021-13 on third reading.
An ordinance creating section 3-545 of the ordinances of the city of Rock Springs entitled Intentional Feeding of Deer, Elk, and Antelope Prohibited within chapter 3 of the ordinances entitled Humane Control and Regulation of Animals.
Councilors, third reading. What's your pleasure?
Your Honor,
Councilman West?
move to approve ordinance 2021-13.
We do have a motion to approve ordinance 2021-13 on third reading. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second's been called. Roll call.
Councilor Demus,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Mayor Como.
Yes. Item number 2, ordinance 2021-14, second reading.
An ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Rock Springs from R1 low density residential to the zoning designation of R3 CD medium density residential conditional district for a parcel of land totaling 11.969 acres and located in section 21 township 19 north range 105 west of the 6th principal meridian in the city of Rock Springs, county of Sweetwater, state of Wyoming.
Item number 3, ordinance 2021-15, first reading.
An ordinance amending Article 3.2 entitled Offenses Concerning Public Morals and Decencies, Section 3-244 entitled Daytime Curfew of the Ordinances of the City of Rock Springs, Wyoming.
Item number 4, ordinance 2021-16, first reading.
An ordinance amending Article 5.2 entitled Operation of Motor Vehicles of the Ordinances of the City of Rock Springs, Wyoming, adopting Wyoming State Statute 31.5.1301, 13.5.1305, and Wyoming Statutes 31-5-1401, 31-5-1402, granting authority to the Rock Springs Municipal Court to enforce Wyoming statutes requiring the use of safety belts.
Item number 5, ordinance 2021-17, first reading.
An ordinance creating Article 10-11 of the ordinances of the City of Rock Springs entitled Permitting and Regulation of Mobile Vendors.
Item number 6, ordinance 2021-18, first reading.
An ordinance amending Article 10-3 entitled Transient Merchants, Peddlers, and Solicitors of the ordinances of the City of Rock Springs, Wyoming.
Okay, council, I think that was some good discussion on first public hearing, first round. We'll make some revisions and bring it back before the governing body and hash it out again at the next meeting, and with no further business to come before the city council, this meeting is adjourned.